Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing well and enjoying this journey into drama. My name is Dr. Meenu Sharma. I'm an assistant professor in Ismail National Mahila PG College, MEERUT. Today we are going to begin what I think is one of the most exciting adventure in theatre. So we are going to look at three groundbreaking movements that completely changed not only how plays were written but also how we see the connection between the text, the performance, and the audience. As you can see on the screen, we have these three types of drama: closet play, poetic drama, and theater of absurd in our today's session. And these are not just part of your syllabus, but I think they represent deep artistic and philosophical shifts that how playwright imagine drama's purpose and how it can shape both the personal awareness and society as a whole. Now let me begin with a question that I want you to carry with you throughout our discussion today. And the question is, what happens when drama breaks free from the physical constraints of the stage or elevated its language? And what does it mean when drama suggests that human existence itself might be fundamentally absurd? So based on these questions, or you can say thoughts, we are going to cover in this lecture these three types of drama: closet play, poetic drama, and theater of the absurd. And each of these type answer your questions in completely different ways, yet they share a common thread that runs like a golden wire through the fabric of modern dramatic literature. These forms of drama is about that revolutionary belief that drama can be and should be more than mere entertainment. And this sentiment actually captures the essence of what we are going to explore today. So drama basically here work as a vehicle for the most profound human experiences and insight. Now let's start with the closet play. So the term closet play or closet drama first appeared in the Oxford English Dictionary in year 1813. But the concept of closet play emerged from a fascinating paradox of the Romantic era. And before we dive deep into closet play, what it is, what are its chief characteristics, we need to understand the theatrical landscape from which this kind of play emerged. And for that, you have to picture yourself in the state of English drama in early 19th century. And here you will see that the stages of London were dominated by melodrama and burlesque. So it was basically an entertainment. In this type of dramas. Uh, there was entertainment that designed to thrill or provide escape from the harsh realities of life. An audience gathered to see that spectacular effects, exaggerated emotions, and a clear moral distinction between the hero and the villain. So you can see that it was theater as spectacle, and theater was like a money making business in this century. And into this environment, we had Romantic and Victorian poets such as Lord Byron, P.B. Shelley, and Robert Browning. These were men of profound literary ambition. They wanted to write play, but when they looked at the theatrical landscape, they actually refused to compromise their artistic vision for popular entertainment. And this was not a mere artistic snobbery, but it was a philosophical stance about the purpose and potential of dramatic art. Because they believed that drama could explore the deepest recesses of human psychology and can achieve the kind of literary beauty that was being sacrificed for commercial success. So here we understand that how it emerges as a type of drama. So if we understand closely closet play, so these plays were written mainly to be read, not to performed. And that's the reason we call them closet drama, because they were meant for private study rather than the public stage. But this kind of play was not a kind of step back from the theatre. In fact, it was a new way of imagining what a drama can be when it is free from the limits of any physical performance. If we understand it through the examples, a great example is Lord Byron's Manfred, which came out in 1870. Here, Lord Byron created a hero, and this hero was so deeply troubled and spiritually haunted that putting him on stage would have felt inadequate. Because the character Manfred, he speaks with spirits, stands on mountain cliffs, thinking about suicide, and carries a mysterious, unbearable guilt. His inner world is as vast and dangerous as the Swiss Alps where the whole story unfolds. So it was difficult to showcase such kind of play, such kind of psychological trauma and complexities on theater, on stage. Now let's understand some key features or essential features of closet drama. So when we look at these essential features, we have firstly the psychological depth over any kind of theatrical spectacle. It means that this complexity, this depth is more important than any spectacle. Secondly, the language was poetic, and this language prioritized literary beauty over dramatic effectiveness. If you have noticed, all the names I have mentioned in the previous slide, they all were great poets of Romantic and Victorian era. So the language was poetic, and literary beauty is reflected in these plays. Thirdly, we have philosophical themes, and these themes resist simple staging. Why? Because it is not possible for the dramatist sometimes to represent these deep themes on the stage. And this freedom from stage constraint allows for unlimited setting and supernatural element. So you can see that these were not limitations but actually a kind of liberations, which allows the dramatist to create unlimited settings and supernatural elements. If you consider the range of works this freedom produced, the list is long. We have Lord Byron's Manfred, which gave us a gothic exploration of guilt and supernatural power. And this work has influenced everything from opera to modern psychological drama. So it was a great and influential work. Another example we can take P.B. Shelley's The Cenci, which was based on a true story of incest and murder in Renaissance Italy. And this story was so brutal and controversial that it could not be staged in Shelley's own lifetime. And yet it remains one of the most powerful exploration of any family violence and moral corruption in English literature. Another example by Shelley is Prometheus Unbound. And this play actually transformed the Greek myth into a cosmic drama. A cosmic drama of liberation that actually spans heaven and earth. This drama features those chorus of spirit and such scene that would challenge even for today's most advanced stage technology. And one thing is very fascinating to note here, and I want you to think about it, that all closet play were written with the purpose of reading, right? But many of them staged successfully. If you see, for instance, The Cenci has seen numerous productions. Manfred has been adapted for opera, and even Prometheus Unbound has found theatrical life. So I would like you to consider for a moment that how does reading a play is different from watching it performed. What do we gain in each experience and what do we lose? It is very important to understand the difference between these two approaches. And the answer, I believe, and it reveals something profound about the nature of dramatic art itself. I believe that when we read a closet drama, we actually become the director, the set designer, in fact, the entire cast. Why? Because we create the performance in our own mind. And this performance can be vast, it can be intimate, and as much as possible psychological complex, and it can be anything as our imagination allow. And there is no, if you think about it, there is no limitation of any budget, there is no limitation of physical space or actors ability, and I think that's the beauty of closet play. Next, we have the fascinating world of poetic drama. And to begin with it, let me ask you to imagine yourself in an Elizabethan playhouse. So here, the stage is where the actor wears simple costume. Even then, the audience is utterly captivated. And what was the reason? Because the words spoken by these characters, these actors, are not ordinary dialogues, but they were written in poetic language, and they were so elevated, rhythmic and musical that it transformed the stage into a temple of imagination. And this is the essence of poetic drama. Poetic drama is basically a theater that sings through poetry. And if we talk about this term, poetic drama, we often called verse drama. It actually refers to plays written completely or largely in verse, in poetic language. And unlike any prose drama, which imitates everyday speech, poetic drama uses a rhythm, imagery, symbolism to heighten the emotional intensity and philosophical depth of any play. If we look back into the history, Aristotle, the great critic, in his famous work Poetics, actually emphasized the word embellished language. And embellished language is an essential part of any tragedy. So we can understand the role or the significance of poetry in drama. If we talk about the purpose of poetic drama is not merely to narrate events, but actually to elevate them, to make the audience feel that they are witnessing something larger than life. And it is theatre that actually transcend realism and enter the realms of symbolic and the universal. If we go back to the roots of poetic drama, it lies in ancient Greece. We had playwrights like Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides. They all were written tragedies in verse. Although they all were exploring different themes such as fate, morality, and divine justice. In fact, if we take example of Sophocles' Oedipus Rex, which is a prime example of poetic play, you will find that its poetic dialogue intensify that tragic inevitability of Oedipus' downfall. The chorus, and they were speaking in lyrical verse, and they served as both commentator and moral compass which guide the audience emotional response. When we fast forward to Elizabethan England, and we find the golden age of poetic drama. Here we have Shakespeare and Christopher Marlowe, and they both have perfected blank verse. They made it the medium of theatre. Shakespeare's Hamlet contains one of the most famous soliloquy in dramatic history, and I'm quoting, "To be or not to be, that is the question." This is not mere dialogue, but it is a poetry that actually captures the existential doubt of humanity. If we talk about Marlowe, Christopher Marlowe, he gave us some great lines. For instance, was this the face that launched 1,000 ships? So it's a line that actually immortalized the beauty of Helen of Troy in English drama. As we move on by the 18th and 19th century, we see that poetic drama start to decline. And the reason was realism. Realism became the dominant mode, and audiences sought natural dialogue that mirrored everyday life. There were playwrights like Henrik Ibsen and G.B. Shaw, and they all were writing in prose because the focus was on social issues and psychological realism. And for this kind of issue, for this kind of ideas, poetic language, poetic dialogues begin to seem artificial. They seem detached from the realities of modern society. And then again in 20th century, we saw a revival of T.S. Eliot. We saw a revival of poetic play in the hand of T.S. Eliot and his great play Murder in the Cathedral. Here, T.S. Eliot reintroduced words drama to explore the spiritual conflict. This play dramatized the martyrdom of Thomas Becket, and its poetic language actually elevate the narrative into a meditation on faith and destiny. Along with Eliot, we have W.B. Yeats in Ireland and Christopher Fry in England. They both also experimented with poetic drama. Christopher Fry's The Lady Is Not for Burning, which came out in 1948, it actually combined wit with lyrical verse and proved that poetry can still captivate modern audience. So this is about the meaning and history of or the development of poetic drama. Now let's understand some chief characteristics or the key characteristics of poetic drama. So poetic drama is distinguished by several key features. The first one is obviously it is written in poetic language, often blank verse, which create a kind of rhythm and musicality. So the language we have is elevated with complex syntax and diction that distance the audience from realism. Secondly, it employs the imagery and symbolism. And both these literary tools deepen the meaning of poetry, the meaning of the play beyond the literal. Thirdly, it possesses musicality with sound patterns that actually enhance the performance. And it creates a kind of detachment from reality. The fourth characteristic is that it explores philosophical depth and focus on inner reality rather than the external events. Let's understand these characteristics with another example, another famous example. And the example is William Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream. In this play, words actually capture the fleeting nature of love. We see that the rhythm and imagery here are not just decorative elements, but they actually embody the play's theme of love's transience. And Elizabethan audience were so captivated by Shakespeare's words that they often memorized lines and quoted them in their own daily life. So here words become the part of a kind of cultural conversation. So in conclusion, I would say that poetic drama is not merely theatre in verse, but actually it transforms the stage into a space where language itself become the spectacle. As T.S. Eliot has observed that and I'm quoting, that genuine poetry can communicate before it is understood. And that's the magic of poetic drama. It moves us even before we fully understand its meaning. Now the next type of drama we have is the theatre of absurd. This type of drama emerged from the ashes of World War II. It was the time when traditional dramatic forms seemed inadequate to express the horror and meaninglessness. And that's why theatre of absurd started. The reason is that this type of drama asked the most fundamental question. And this question was, why do we live at all? And all these plays which come under the heading of theatre of the absurd, they try to answer this question. If we look at the term, this term was coined by Martin Aslin. He coined this term in his influential book which came out in 1961. And he gave this term by identifying a movement that included Samuel Beckett, Eugene Ionesco, Harold Pinter, and others playwrights who actually shared a vision of human existence as fundamentally absurd. But let us consider that what is the meaning of absurd in this context. It's not simply silly or ridiculous. If we look at the definition given by existentialist philosopher Albert Camus, we see that absurd is actually the conflict between human desire for meaning and the universe's apparent meaninglessness. So this conflict between human and universe is actually absurd. And Eugene Ionesco, the famous playwright, he approached the absurdity through the breakdown of communication itself. For instance, in his play The Bal Suparno, we see this breakdown of communication. This play was first performed in 1950, and the characters speak in cliches and random dialogues. And here in this play, the language itself becomes meaningless. And that's the way to show the meaninglessness of life itself. The play begins with what seems like a normal domestic scene where Mr. and Mrs. Smith were discussing their evening. But gradually they descend into a kind of linguistic chaos. So in a theatre of absurd, the familiar becomes strange, the logical becomes illogical, and what should be the most intimate recognition become the most alienating confusion. And it is all about theatre of absurd. Let's talk about the technique that this type of play apply. And the techniques of absurdist drama, we have those circular or you can say static plots, because the plots go nowhere. There is no beginning, there is no middle, no end. There is nothing actually happen in this kind of play. Second, we found the breakdown of logical language. It is the breakdown of logical communication, as we have seen in the example I have given in the last slide. Third is that repetitive and ritualistic action, and Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett is the best example of that. We see the same action, repetitive action, ritualistic action throughout this play. And this next technique is the absence of traditional character development. There was no development in character, and the settings are also very vague, or you can say dream-like settings, that you can never believe that it is actually happening. So these are the features or the techniques of any absurd play. And if you notice that these are not actually the failures of a dramatic technique, but they are a kind of deliberate strategies, and these strategies help to mirror what actually the playwright saw as the absurdity of existence itself. And here we have this beautiful irony, and this is crucial to understand that why these plays have endured. What is the reason? The reason, I think, is that by dramatizing meaninglessness, these plays create profound meaning. For instance, Beckett's character may wait for nothing. We see that two of them were waiting for something, but actually they were wait for nothing. But the audience find deep truths about persistence, friendship, and the human condition. Similarly, in Eugene Ionesco's character, we have quoted in previous slide, they may fail to communicate, but their failure actually illuminates our own struggles to connect with one another. So here it can be said that theater of the absurd confirm that drama's power doesn't depend on plot or character development in the traditional sense, but in reality it depends on drama's ability to create a shared experience of what it means to be human, whether that experience is one of confusion, isolation, and uncertainty. So as we conclude, I want to leave with you with uh, three questions so you can carry forward. The first one is, how do these movements challenge our assumption about what drama should do? The second question is, which approach, whether the intimate psychological focus of closet drama, elevated poetic play, or the existential questioning of absurdist theatre, which of these three speaks most powerfully of our current scenario? And now the third question, that how might contemporary playwright synthesize elements from all three movements to address the challenge of our own time? Thank you so much for your attention today. See you in the next lecture.